Hi everybody, it's Dave here, doing a commentary for the 2014 or 2015 film, The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Great to see the Orion Pictures logo there. Kind of, even though I remember seeing on the poster it said Orion, kind of completely forgot it was Orion until saw the logo. This is a really funny logo. I saw this company logo when I was watching the Jennifer Lopez film, The Boy Next Door, and it's like, God, that's the logo. Like, it's kind of cool because, like, years ago that would have been just freaky scene in like a horror movie or something. Now it's like this weird logo. What's really funny though, because Texarkana, because I've seen Smokey and the Bandit so many times that if I ever hear Texarkana now, all I can think of is go and get the beer from Texarkana, or they got to get the beer to Texarkana. Anyway, there's a Thursday here in Atlanta, and there's beers in Texarkana. Yeah, they've got to get the beer from Texarkana and then go to Atlanta. I think that's right. But what's great about this film though as well, and it made me sort of think that a bit like, and I'm kind of really amazed that it took me this long to click in really, but like when Scream first came out, uh, the first one, obviously, I remember thinking, oh, it's so clever, it's postmodern, and oh look, they know the rules for horror movies and all these different things. And then you go back to like Friday 13th Part 6, and you think, oh, that's it's quite meta. They kind of winking at the camera, and they know the rules of horror movies and things. And then you can just keep going back further and further and further. And when I found out this was coming out last year, I kind of got a copy of the original version. It's like from 1976, 77, and even the very first version of this, they kind of know the film exists. They talk about the film. It's like referencing, what happened and everything. And you think, wow, it literally is. I mean, oh no, you can trace the origins of slasher movies, back to Psycho and even say something like as we say, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Anytime she sees lift up the knife, I always think, oh wow, it just reminds me of Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, all those kinds of people. So I know you can trace it back, a long way, but really, I think most people would say one of the very first slasher movies was Black Christmas, and that's it's got all the elements in their POV shots. It's like all the college people and everything, and people partying and all that kind of stuff, and it's based around a holiday and all that kind of things. And then to think that like a film that came out a couple of years later, the original version of this, and we'll get to that in a second, that even by 1976 there were slasher movies that were like, oh yeah, and they knew they were a movie. They knew that it was built around something else, and we'd already got to that point where they were sort of not just films anymore. And then this is something else, like watching this film, because I don't know why. I think I must have got some inkling that that it was like, well, obviously I assume it was just a straight out flat remake, but something that's been happening quite a lot since like say the 90s, or maybe a little bit earlier, but like just say when the 1998, was it 1998? Oh no, so 2000 version of Shaft came out, and it was a sequel to the original, or a sequel to the first three. And even though it's called Shaft, it was, I think we said on the commentary I did for that, we'd like jokingly called it Shaft 4 and stuff like that. And then you look at like something like the new Gareth Edwards Godzilla movie. It's a sequel to the 50s Godzilla movie, but it's just called Godzilla. And then you've got all these films that are like, or the new Evil Dead. It's, you know, I know it's got all these convoluted, crazy names, but you look at the new Evil Dead, it's basically a sequel to Evil Dead. And then you've got like something like this, which is a sequel to the Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I do think it's really interesting that's like become like a thing where you think it would I won't say damage the film in the sense that it's going to be popular one way or another, but you would think that if this was marketed as the Town of the Dreaded Sundown 2 or the Return to the Town of the Dreaded Sundown, it would bring more people in that were more familiar with the original, and I know this is a bit of a cult movie compared to, say, Evil Dead or Shaft or something. But even so, I think if I'd have known this was some kind of sequel straight off the bat, I think I'd have gone more out of my way to sort of find. Well, actually, again, talk about trying to find this film. That's another story in itself. But what's really interesting about this is, and a lot of people hate stuff like this, but I think it's really cool how the basis for so many horror films is this concept of like a couple in a car on that lover's lane, and they hear a noise and they get spooked, and that kind of, I kind of love that in a way that like how it's kind of almost gone all the way back around now. Like it's like a cliche or a trope or whatever. I hate using the word trope, but it's, it's something that you've seen a million times in horror movies, but now it's been done so many times, it's become almost, you can't do it any other way. And this is something as well that I've noticed in tons of stuff recently, and even stuff that's brand new, like brand new music videos or brand new TV commercials or brand new movies, is that they always drive old muscle cars like from the 60s and 70s. And don't get me wrong, that's a great shot there of the killer in the woods. But that's something though where like somebody from my generation probably thinks these cars are quite cool. But it'd be really interesting to, like, like say teenagers or people in the 20s. Did they look at? I guess, to be fair, it's pretty hard not to look at a cool Dodge or Mustang or something and think it's. I guess again, some of those things that are built in there, I guess they're inherently cool. One thing as well, talking about Scream and postmodernism, the thing that I do think is amazing though is like how it's all the clues were there. Like when I first watched Scream, and even though at the time I classed myself as I knew a lot about horror movies, and obviously some of the references are really just, when somebody says, "Oh, looks like a Wes Carpenter movie," you're like, "Oh yeah, very funny," and then, but there's so many references in Scream that I didn't notice for years after. Like I never noticed the Linda Blair cameo. I never noticed the Wes Craven cameo. And then there's one line where Dewey says, or somebody says to Dewey, "Oh, it's like the Town That Dreaded Sundown," and he goes, "Yeah, I've seen that movie." And at that time, I never thought about it, but and then becoming aware of like this remake and the original, and just getting more and more into horror movies. And then you're like, "Oh wow, yeah." But the thing is, though, as well, talking about like how horror films out, they all build on one another and they all reference one another and they all take elements from one another. But one thing I think is incredible is when you look at the fact that the killer's like wearing just like a bag over his head, and that's how Jason was in Friday 13th Part 2 and the first half of the newer Friday 13th film. And don't get me wrong, this is almost sacrilege to say this, because don't get me wrong, the hockey mask on Jason is iconic, super cool. Uh, and I'm more of a fan of the later Friday the 13th movies, but there was something so demented, so out there about a killer just like wearing a bag over your head. I mean, there's something kind of like just so spooky about this. And what's great about this, like I assume anybody watching this will have seen the film first, but again, there's a Scream element to this, like where again they're trying to make the killer. They're trying to make the town remember what happened, and it's two people, and like it's almost like the Scream 2 mentality. The body count's bigger, the deaths are more elaborate and stuff. So again, again, you can almost take it too far, because like say. I mentioned it on a video we did recently about like sort of this week's geek news, and the Scream TV to take the commentary, but the Scream TV series is starting in a couple of weeks, and there's a bit on the Scream TV series trailer when somebody says, "I'll never work as a TV show," and you're like, "Oh yeah, very funny." But so yeah, I think you can take it too far by going, "Oh yeah," winking, nodding to the camera, and sort of like say, deliberately. I like to say, I don't mean this in a nasty way, but I'd be amazed if it's not a Scream 2 nod. Oh, it was two killers. Like, it just seems, it's the first thing that popped in there was Scream 2. But one thing that I love about this movie, though, And this is like one of these things where, again, everybody says it nowadays, and it's a big, huge cliche, especially on the internet when people say "mind blown." And this is one of them films where, a bit like any good horror movie, really, you can watch it like Dawn of the Dead. You can just go, "Oh, it's a zombie film," but then it's got all these. That's Orion Pictures Corporation, but yeah, you can watch like a really great film like Dawn of the Dead or Cabinet of Caligari and go, yeah, great horror movies. And then you can literally do huge dissertations on about consumerism or about like the fall of like communism or something, and all these that's not what Cabinet of Caligari is about. My mind's gone blank. I didn't watch the documentary about it, but I understood it at college. No mind, we'll get back to that again. Yeah, but all these great horror films they're about something else, and also maybe stretching the point with this film. But the thing I love about this film is the fact that it's you could go, oh, it's a straight slasher movie, which it is, but all at the same time, it's a sequel to the original, and then it's not only a sequel to the original, it shows footage from the original, and not only does it show footage from the original, which we've seen like literally right now. From what I can gather, it's based on. I know a lot of films are based on a true story, and you're like, and it's like someone text change from it's like, is it really based on a true story? It's like, well, kind of, not really. It's like these 3 or 4 stories just put together. Kind of thing. But from what I can gather, this is a real thing that happens in Texarkana, and they do show the movie. As far as I know, I haven't done really much. I should have done way more research. But from what I can gather, it's like a real thing. So it's like it's this real thing that happened in real life, and then in that town they show the actual film, and in the original version of the actual film they show the actual film. They talk about it like it's a real thing, and then in this version of it they show the footage from the original film that is about a real event that really happened, and this is a remake, a sequel to that. It's just, it's like one of those things where I think it must be something in my personality, but that just punches all my buttons. It's like, while like in the Method Madness, while like Psycho remake, I love these films that are like just multi-layered, or like a Cronenberg film or David Lynch, and don't get me wrong, I think my taste really, in movies are pretty bog standard, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like but I'll quite happily watch a dead standard cop movie, or a dead standard like western or something. But if I'm I don't think I need no excuse to be a geek, and I think it's one of these things where anything that's like got a coincidence in there, or got a reference, or got like a tip of the hat, I kind of love all that. And one thing about this film as well, and this is like again a relatively recent thing, and I don't think this stuff, I've never had much time for it, nothing to do with this film, but this film kind of alludes to it. But when you get so many things on the internet where it's like kids react to VHS, or old people react to Godzilla, and they're like, you see the footage, and it's like, I've only ever watched a handful because, like I said, they don't do nothing for me. But like when people, oh, what's VHS? I've never seen it. Or oh, what's a Game Boy Advance or something? You're like, oh, okay, okay. We'll just say, for argument's sake, these people really do exist, where they've never used a payphone, or they haven't seen a VHS video, or they've never used a phone with a cord on it or something. And you go, okay, just say, for argument's sake, God knows what kind of mental defectives these people are, but just say, for argument's sake, these people exist. Um, Watching a film like this must be a mind blower, because, like I say, not only have it, I just said about it, it's like this film is, it's like this huge, great big snowball of, all these different elements loaded into it. But there's so much stuff in this film, and again, I got such a kick out of it. I think I read a dead reader comment on IMDb where they said they don't like how it's made Texarkana look. Which, don't get me wrong, I can see that, because like I'm from Staffordshire, and anytime you see Stoke or Newcastle under Lyme on the TV, they're always basically rednecks who can barely street, come from like a really kind of nice place, really, and for the most part. But anytime you see it on telly, it's like this historic market town. But if anytime they reference it, it's always because there's no jobs, or somebody's done something crazy, or football hooligans or something, and so I kind of can see where they're coming from. So like like if Texarkana's not really like this, but yeah, that, like I say, people who say, oh, I've never seen a VHS video, like I love about this film that even though this film's brand new, literally coming out in October in America, and this week in the UK, but like I did look at the poster for the original, but yeah, like in this, there's loads of times where they open like a dead old-fashioned fridge, or someone will use like a VHS video, or like that tube TV we just saw. And I like say to me, this stuff's all second nature. Like I still use videos. I know people have got tube TV still, and like if I see a payphone outside, I'm shockingly haven't used a payphone for about a year or something, but. I still acknowledge them. I'm like, oh, there's a payphone. I'll try to keep a mental note of where they are and things. But yeah, but like if you are one of these uh, these people in inverted commas that don't know this stuff exists, are you just watching this film going, what's that machine above the TV? And what like, I guess I don't know. Let's have a sip of my tea. What's funny though, these last few commentaries I've done have been dangerously booze free. That's another thing though as well. Talking about like modern films, but like as far as I know, this shot was digitally. I could be way off on that, but just say for argument's sake again, just say it was shot digitally. One thing I have noticed that, and I think it's a real shame, but the films that seem to do really, really well that were shot digitally, or TV shows that were shot digitally, look like crap, or just look really generic and boring. And I feel like this film, like, because I was watching this and I thought, oh, 'cause I love slash movies, love horror, but I didn't think really much of it, and I do find really fascinating the films that have got again that extra layer on there. That yeah, not the end of the world if a film looks great or got some good direction in there, which sounds a ridiculous thing to say, saying it out loud, but sometimes you can watch the biggest piece of shit like film and it looks terrible and it's all set up all wrong and everything. But like, but you get some kind of enjoyment out of it. But definitely great watching it. Something like this where most people won't give this film the time of day, but it looks beautiful. Like the director worked on Argo, who's like an assistant director. And then another thing that's really, what's really funny about this as well, I'll get a YouTube page up, but yeah, because this film it came out in October in America, and I'd kind of forgot about it, like so, oh, it'd be cool when it comes out in the UK, and I didn't really think much of it. And then a couple of weeks ago, I'm addicted to YouTube, and I'm subscribed to about like 200 people, so I'm constantly getting like in your subscription list, all these different things came up and stuff like that, and I'll just excuse me, I should have tried to find this beforehand really, but somebody did a review for the original film. It was on my subscription list, and said the reason he did the review, excuse me, jeez, was to celebrate the release of this version of the Town That Dreaded Sundown. I was like, oh wow, it's coming out, brilliant! And I posted like on his page. I said like, I thought I'd missed it, like kind of thing. Thanks for doing the review. And then again, like I think because like last week there was so much geeky stuff coming out, like the Batman vs Superman trailer and the Episode 7 trailer and all these different sorts of... Oh, and the Rogue One trailer, by the way, which is... Oh my god, talk about Gareth Edwards. But yeah, so... God, what's his name? This is... he's a guy who's into horror. I'm going to say Dave Hacks, but it's not. It's not that. God, why is my YouTube history so giant? Must be here somewhere. This is a great commentary. If I can't find it, I'll have to put it in the. A couple more. No, I'll put it in the text portion of this commentary. On the website, sectrex.co.uk, folks. But yes, anyway, somebody on my subscription list reviewed the original The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And I thought, oh great. And then, like I say, I think it slipped my mind for whatever reason. I kind of forgot about it again. And then I was, and I got so many. I watch YouTube on so many different places, and some of them I'm logged into, some of them I'm not logged into. Sometimes I just can't be bothered. And then sometimes, like, I'll pick up my phone and it's logged into YouTube, and it'll be like my subscription list pops up again, and it'll be like their nudity. This is really crazy though now, because this is a 15 certificate film in the UK. And what's really crazy though, this film, I'm pretty sure, if this film in its current cut would have been completely. I would have thought it would have been banned years ago, or at least in 18. And it's like now, like would you have to for like make it an 18, like kill a bunch of nuns or something. But anyway, yeah. So I kind of forgot about this was being released, and then on my subscription list it came up because I subscribed to the Radio 5 Live Mark Commode's and Mayo podcast. And even though like Mark Commode's off this week or a couple of weeks, James King reviewed this version. I was like, oh wow, yeah, great, it's coming out. And then so I was like, oh, brilliant. And I thought, oh, no disrespect to the distributors because this one of them films, even though I think this film's brilliant. It's just even there, something simple as that. As soon as I just, wow, what a great shot. It's that, nice slow panning, dolly shot there. But yeah, I thought, oh, great. If it's been reviewed on, Radio 5, it must be, getting a relatively big release, I would have thought. And I thought, oh great, I'll go see it. Like, got a little tiny bit, got some actual money in the bank, not much, but got enough for a cinema ticket anyway. So I was like, oh great, I'll go see it. And there's a website that I normally really love. It's called Remote Goat, and you type in your postcode and you type in the film you want to see, and literally even if it's only on at like I mean that's not something you see every day. It's a guy smashing a window with a severed head. It's like the Wayne's World joke. It's a severed head. But oh yeah, one thing I will say, because I meant to say it, I don't know why, they just remind me the killer in the original feels really manic and really crazy. And one thing I loved about the original, it started off by saying the names have been changed to protect the innocent. And at the very end of this, in the credits, one of the last things you see in the credits was the names have been changed to protect the innocent. So I kind of like how it bookended it. But anyway, yeah. So I thought, oh great, this film's coming out. Oh, awesome. And so it was like, I checked on Remote Goat, and I was like, it literally was coming up with nothing. I was like, I'm sure it's coming out this week. Like I say, it got reviewed and things like that. And then, like, went on the Odeon website, nothing. I went on the View website, nothing. And I was like, because even films like this, even if they have like one showing a day or, a showing on a Friday, Saturday night or something like that, they're usually on. And I was like, well, normally if the View doesn't get it, the Odeon gets it, and if the Odeon doesn't get it, the View gets it, and vice versa. And the Odeon, I've had, quote unquote problems with the Odeon recently, like, I went to see Godzilla. God, again, this all goes back to Godzilla. I went to see Godzilla and the film was blurred. I went to see a Grudge match, the screen was cold. Nothing bothered me personally, but, they were apologising for it and stuff like that. There have been little things like that where, just, it's just all cockeyed, set up all wrong and everything. But the Odeon normally rock solid for things like that. Anything like that's like a bit of a flop or a bit obscure, like they had Geely on when I went to see Geely. They had Punisher Warzone on, which was like, I didn't think we'd get like this. I didn't think we'd probably get to see it around here. And like saying more often than not, the Odeon's pretty good. And I was like, well, why can't I find this film? Surely he looks like one of the. Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons from Jersey Boys, the Clint Eastwood movie, the guy with the mustache in that film. Actually, that James King said that in his review. He said that this film's full of people you're like, where do I know that person from? Where do I know that person from? So I was checking anyway. I was checking these websites, and this is one thing that sort of like I know I kind of get paranoid, for want of a better word, about things like this. But I think, am I doing it wrong? Like, am I typing it in wrong, or am I just using the internet wrong, or am I not just? I was like, well, usually more. That's a great shot. Just kind of almost reminds me of the scene in Scream where they said about the actual scene where they said about the town that dreaded sundown. And again, it's that little visual little reference there in that film and things like that. So I was thinking like, what am I doing? And then I took my geekiness to a whole nother level. But I found out who was distributing this film in the UK. Sorry. I found out who was distributing this film in the UK. Oh, smoking, cool. Again, this film's gone up a notch in my book. The old look out for smoking in a film and you'll normally see a good film. But I got there eventually. So I found out who was distributing this film, and I fired off a quick email. I just said like, I've heard it's coming out. It might just be me being a moron kind of thing, but it's actually coming out this week. And that cool. They sent me like a reply just saying that these are all the cinemas that it was on, and it's only on at Cineworld Cinemas. And I don't know how many Cineworlds there is in the UK, but I think there's about 15 on this list. So a film like this is like, and again, great that it's actually out there, great that it's actually on in a cinema. But I couldn't believe that like my nearest cinema is 40 miles from my house, which not the end of the world, like kind of thing. Proper first world problems. Oh, want to see a film? Oh, it's an hour up the road, kind of thing. But I can't get over that. I mean, I should check on IMDb, but I can't get over though that like the last commentary I did was for Death Wish 3, and I can't believe that like somebody from Death Wish 3 is in this movie. It's like I did say Martin Pulsman, no, that's not his name. He's the guy from Bill and Ted. Ed Lauter is his name. What? He's dead? Oh, that's ridiculous. Thinking about it, I heard this film that had been sort of sitting on the shelf for a couple of years, thinking, oh well, that's crazy. Um, God, yeah, another character, another character, another actor from Death Wish 3's gone. God, I know they were all kind of old again, and doing air quotes, but oh wow, oh, makes me feel bad. It's like they're like how and again, I don't know if it was like a deliberate, well, like I said, art direction doesn't just do itself right, but like I say again, if like I say, if you're from Texarkana, and I do kind of feel sorry for these westerny type towns though, and again, I've got like I can see, because like I say the town I am from and grew up in, that like it gets it all the time, that like say it's like just even generally though, I've always thought we're always the last to get everything, like even like like from Staffordshire, like we haven't really got any exhibition type centres or anything, or we haven't got like like even sometimes try and find a record shop as like a special order, it's like, but you go some of these bigger cities, and as soon as you get off the bus, it's like, oh, record shop, or big huge bookshop or something. So I kind of like say I can kind of see, I definitely can see where people are coming from when they sort of uh, you know, if people have been sort of complaining about it, saying, no, they've made us look bad, like kind of thing. But to me, I kind of, in a way, I know a lot of people won't read into it like this, but I kind of look at it as endearing in a way that, like, so many places now are really faceless and, really homogenized, and everywhere is exactly the same. Everywhere's got like McDonald's and a Subway and all these different things, and then I kind of like sometimes when you go to these, and especially in the UK, you've only got to drive, but they're over 10 minutes, and you'll see like a place that's got like a red phone box or something, or like a little, like two shops or something, and and don't get me wrong, I'm actually, it's probably a completely wrong way of phrasing it, but like I actually quite like corporations in a way, like don't get me wrong, I don't like it when they steamroll over people, or if they like destroying some rainforest somewhere or something like that. But just the idea of business, it just never really bothered me. And it's like, to me, a lot of the things that I like, a big fan of movies, they're made by sort of corporations and things like that, and they're made by huge companies. And I think about video games, or actual like video machines, or video game consoles. I'll play your video game, but computers and things that are arcade machines. They were made by huge multinational conglomerates and all this kind of thing. So, like, I'd feel a bit hypocritical. I was like, oh, I don't like big corporations, and it's like, oh, what things are you into? Oh, I love movies. So it's kind of like, it'd be what's funny, because normally when I do a commentary, it's like the first 10 or 15 minutes, I'll be like, I'll suddenly feel like I've suddenly started watching the film, and like, and then I'll be like, yeah, I barely mentioned this film since I've started the commentary. But I really do feel like though as well, and again, just talking about that, seeing that guy smoking there, and again, I know I say it on every commentary, even brought myself with it. I don't think there's been a payphone in this film yet. And my but two of many little unofficial little things I've got. If I see a film with a payphone in it, or I see a film where somebody's smoking, all's right with the world. Again, being slightly facetious there, but yeah, I think films like this though, I think within the first few minutes of a film, I think sometimes you can tell when, and again, this film, it is what it is. There's no two ways about it. But I think there's something else going on there. And again, that's actually just reminding me of something. But one thing I think with horror, and again, I don't know what the right way of phrasing it is. Again, I don't think this is what I'm going to say. I don't know if it's the right way of phrasing it, but don't get enough credit. But I think certain horror films, Jesus, excuse me, oh, that Steve's making me gasp. Maybe it's the after effects of the Iceland atomic hot vindaloo I had last night kicking in. But yeah, the one thing I think some horror films don't get enough credit for is the title on itself. Like, if even if this film was like a blank screen, obviously again being facetious, but even if this film was nowhere near as good, excuse me, as people saying, the title is so great. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. And how perfect is that? It leaves so much to the imagination, and it's like, what, why? And then you look at some of the big, real iconic movies. I mean, real sort of, the films that like at the top. If somebody said list the top 10 horror movies, I mean, for actually how they made it and how good they are, they've probably got a great title too. Like Night of the Living Dead. I mean, what a great title. And then, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Even, and I quite like those titles where they're like 4 or 5 words, because just like you say, and if they all sort of almost fall on top of one another, like even something like say Friday the 13th, but like say going to the slightly longer titles, like say Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, like I say they conjure up so much in the imagination, and I think, like say, obviously you can only build on that to a point, because like say just recently been like watching some old like 80s horror movies that I haven't really heard. Like I was watching Blood Diner last night, and it was kind of a cool film. It was kind of a little bit out there, a little bit disjointed, but very enjoyable. But like I think you can only go so far off a poster, or off a title. I think you'll only get a certain amount of success from that. Sometimes like say, and as much as I don't like, I mean, anybody who knows me, I like 99.9% stuff I've ever seen, just on some level or some degree. But I think you'll only get so much success off it exploitation title. Like I say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre have been like, look at that, a black and white CRT TV linked up to a video and a Ford with a cone, a phone with a cord with a phone on it. Is me say, God, like I say, if you're one of these people who doesn't know about old technology, has this last bit of the scene made any sense? But yeah, I think you'll only get so far with a great title, because but like when these films, I've got this reputation that like you can just remake the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you can do a sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or you can show these films on TV, and instantly people go, oh, it's like that instant, and look at that guy there from Office Space in Midnight Caller, but that's what is great. But that's another thing though as well. Watching some of these 70s, I was watching Play Misty for me as well yesterday. It's been a really mad week for watching like visual things though, because again, I normally think I'm pretty desensitized, seeing everything, and then like, you watch like say, the Batman versus Superman trailer, and you're like, what, like, in the sense that like Batman vs Superman's a great idea, and then the last shot of the IMAX trailer where you see them running at each other, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then like the new Star Wars trailer with like, and again, I know it's a big the big fan thing to say, that like I meant to be like, it's a fan thing to do. Like there's BB-8 at the moment, everybody's losing the shit. To be fair, he is amazing, but there's BB-8 in the Force Awakens, everybody's like, oh my god, BB-8, BB-8, you see like, oh my god, then watching like hours and hours of the live Anaheim stream and everything. And then watching Play Misty for me yesterday, and spoilers, I mean, there's an old film, it's 1971, but at the very end, I saw Clint Eastwood punch a woman through a window, which is, for all the wrong reasons, incredible in itself. I mean, when's the last time you see very many people get punched through a window? But I saw Clint Eastwood punch a woman through a window, and then as she falls through the window, she falls over a balcony and off the edge of a cliff. And it was like, wow, that's not something you see every day. And then a bit later on in the day, I watched this Blood Diner, and this had loads of mad visuals, but one of the mad ones, one of the maddest ones, was I saw a chef have his hands cut off while he was driving a car, and then the car slams into this wall or whatever, and I was like, well, yeah, that's not something you see every day either. So these last few days, just watching like, and then watching, I can't even what the point I was going to make was. I was going to do something crazy on this, but like you're like, oh yeah, that's the thing I was going to say. Jesus, God, I ping pong around sometimes. But one of the great things as well, like I was saying about a scene with a payphone in or a scene with somebody smoking. Again, not the end of the world. Bun my cabbages. That's a weird phrase. I'm repeating myself. Is what I meant to say. But yeah, so certain things I instantly mentally check them off on my head. If that's good, that's good, that's good. But this is a film as well where, again, not to be all and end all, nor deal breaker, but just having interesting people in there. Oh, you're just like, oh, there's that guy from Kangaroo Jack. Oh, there's that guy from Office Space. Oh, there's that guy from Death Wish 3. That woman who just answered that door there actually looked like a real person. And even though these two people in this, they like the young, hip kids. I don't know if they're hip, but they like, the main characters or whatever. But they actually look like real human beings. Where I think there's been a bit of a tradition of late of having like movies, people in movies that are like ridiculously good looking, and I think, and again, not the end of the world. In the right mind wants to see ugly people in films. I watch films, to get away from real life. Like I say again, where I'm from, not exactly known for good looking people, so it kind of like, to see movie stars is kind of cool. But at the same time, I do think that's something, and not just in my day, but I do feel that even through all the decades, but you don't see more from things when you grew up like in the 70s and 80s. But I do feel like that, you'd watch a Friday 13th film, a Nightmare on Elm Street film, and your Johnny Depp's and Kevin Bacon's aside, they were they were good looking people, but they looked like, you didn't think, oh, they were, they had fake teeth or fake boobs or, or something like that, or, they were these big, huge muscle guys or something. They just looked like, normal people, and I think it's slowly creeping back into films, and I think like I say again, I hate judging films on box office because it's completely pointless. It's like, what's such a complete waste of time. But I do feel like it's a shame. Like if this film has sat on the shelf for a couple of years and it's getting this real patchy release, I think it comes out in August in the UK on DVD and that, and it's probably coming out in a lot of places. Probably it's probably on like a lot of these on-demand sites and all these different things. Like saying it's actually playing this week in the UK, so it's not like it's been it's not like it's necessarily been forgotten. Look at that, like a video, yeah. It's the Train That Dreaded Sundown VHS. I didn't notice that on the top of the. But that's like say. But what's kind of funny about that, like such a geek, but he's watching it on a 4:3 TV and it's cut into like widescreen footage. But yeah, but it's a thing that you notice it more, like say with things you grow up with. But I feel like the more they keep things real, and it's a shame if this film hasn't done that well. Like say at the end of the day, and this it took me a long time to sort of come to terms with this. But when Grindhouse wasn't this giant. I think it, did okay, made its money back, but I was so hoping that Grindhouse would become like a regular thing that it would be sort of like every year or every couple of years there'd be this double bill with all these fake trailers and like and the few times I have gone to I asked it when I went to see Grindhouse, but I was lucky enough to see the release, the very limited release that got in the UK. But anytime I've been to a double bill or triple bill, it's so great, and like I'm like wanting stuff that I never really grew up with really, but I love the concept of going to cinema for like 5-6 hours and just having a beer or having a hot dog and ping ponging back and forth from this film doesn't or this I'm not bothered about this part of this film, I'm just going for a pee or something, but being in that environment for all those hours is kind of interesting to me. And it took me a while to sort of think, well, Grindhouse didn't do as well as it probably should have done. You think all the names are involved and everything, but then again, the way I've come to peace with it is the fact that I think, well, at the end of the day, it was trying to reference something that was never that successful to begin with, really. I mean, these films were successful in the day because that wasn't a great deal to do. You went to the cinema and then, to make people come into the cinema, you'd have these elaborate posters that were real crazy and, promising something they could never deliver and things like that. But thank God I can't remember this bit at all from when I watched it the other day. To be fair, I wasn't really properly watching it the other day. But yeah, that so Grindhouse was like, the Grindhouse mentality, do it, and then trying to replicate that. So you sort of, there was no internet, TV was rubbish and things. So cinemas will get people in. But again, these films years ago, like obviously you'd have your Texas Chainsaw Massacres and things like that. But again, talking about something like the original Black Christmas, the Bob Clark film. How successful was that on its original run? And like I say, as far as I'm it's not the be all and end all, but I'd love these films to make money just so that people involved make money and can get to make other films because the movie business works. But yeah, so with something like this, that on the one hand, I think, oh god, it's a shame, might not have been as successful as if they wanted it, or it might not have had this huge release or whatever. But then again, films like this have never been like that, and especially not in my lifetime. I mean, I don't know what it was like in the 60s and 70s, when Night Living Dead and all these films were coming out and stuff. I don't know if, I could go down to my local Savoy, my local cinema, and, if, the original Town That Dreaded Sundown would have been on. I'm guaranteed it wouldn't have been probably if it had been the Savoy, because I know what they're like. But I know when I was a kid, any of these films that came out, like from about Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, from once they got to like about part three, I cannot remember any of them being released at the cinema. I think A New Nightmare might have been. I think Jason X was, and some of the later ones sort of crept back in, but just because I wasn't old enough. But I literally can't remember walking past the cinema and seeing like a poster for Friday 13th Part 5 or something, or like a Nightmare on Elm Street 4 or something like that. Like, they just come straight to video in the UK and things like that. And, in some of these obscure horror films, that's one thing as well. I must have said this on commentaries, but that's one thing I'm always really envious for people in America. I don't think they realise how lucky they are. Like, again, it's a proper first world problem, but not. But like in America, even if a film is not very good, at least for the most part, it comes out to the cinema. You get the chance to watch it at the cinema, and then if it flops dead bad in America, it doesn't get released anywhere. It would go straight to video or TV or whatever. But that's one thing that, like, say, in this country, like, we only get the films that very, very rarely get, like, a film, occasionally I think it's really funny, it works the other way around though, where, say, we'll have a film like, say, Shaun of the Dead that comes out over here, and I'll go watch it at the cinema, and then, like, I'll be on, like, QuickTime trailers or something, and I'll be like, Shaun of the Dead coming, 3 months, I'm like, what? And it's like, oh, yeah, it's kind of what the other way around, because it was like, like a British film, and it got released in Britain first, so kind of interesting seeing it from that perspective kind of thing. But one thing I do kind of like as well, like say when I saw that guy reviewing it, God, I can't think of his name, on YouTube. That's one thing I do kind of like about, you can't generalize how all, but at least 50% of horror fans are pretty loyal, and I know you shouldn't just be loyal to something just for the sake of it, 'cause it's pretty goddamn stupid, but I mean, I do kind of like that once you've got that affinity for like horror movies or sci-fi, and especially especially once you start getting into subgenres like slasher movies or monster movies, I do kind of like that. I think no matter what, and I think you look at people like Joe Dante or John Landis or John Carpenter, I think even if you're in your 50s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, like I think as long as you're still knocking around and as long as you've still you coherent or whatever, I think you always find this kind of thing interesting. Like ever since like I got into horror, like once I very started getting into horror and like the mid to late 80s, like early 90s, and I think like rented things like Friday 13th Part 8 and Halloween 4 and 5 and things like that. I've never really lost that sort of passion for slasher movies, and like I was saying earlier on, that on the one you think, oh, I've seen it before, and everything's a remake or a sequel or a pastiche or a tribute or like I say, and like I say, even though that doesn't bother me, you can see why it's a slasher. That's pretty fucked up. Does he? Actually, that's so bad enough that I can't remember if this is a tribute to the original, so tributes to the original. You don't. To be fair, that's not something you say that. That's one thing as well. Uh, that keyboard sound or that music, as far as I'm aware, it's from the original version. And again, that is something though. I'll say what I was going to say and I'll get back to the music in a second. Like that would have been banned years ago in the UK. I mean, that's just so crazy. I mean, like I say, it doesn't bother me personally, but you think, wow, just think, some of the films that got banned years ago, like something like Driller Killer or something like that, and there's nothing in Driller Killer hardly. You think, wow, it's this film that's banned for like 25, 30 years. Yeah, but like I don't think you ever lose that passion for horror sci-fi. I think you've got that outside, kind of like, even though I like to think it's a thing that I normally get on with most people and things, but I always feel like I never quite fit in. Like I'm always like. I'm always that idiot geek, like that, like even like especially at family gatherings or even in like working the few jobs I've had, like I never seem to quite, be like, hey, party, and I always do it in like a geeky way. So I think once you've got that kind of outside, once you kind of, once you know yourself as a person, and I think you know what you're into. Like I don't think I've ever not wanted to watch a new slasher movie. Like even that, some you've seen like, some like I remember I really hoped for Valentine, thinking, oh, it's gonna be brilliant, and it was like I remember thinking, one of the few films I was like, kind of disappointed with. But so yeah, I don't think you ever lose that. Again, going back to Godzilla, all links back to Godzilla. But like, anytime there's a Godzilla movie come out. I mean, I know I grew up with like the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, and people probably laugh at that now. When you press the button, Godzilla pops out the water. I mean, to me that was the coolest thing ever. And even now, like because of growing up with that Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, anytime somebody's got a new Godzilla, like there's a new Godzilla game coming out in a couple of months, I can't wait. Oh my god, So and it's like I think once you've got that interest, you don't ever lose it. And yeah, but just that music, and I think that's another thing as well. Again, not a deal breaker, not like not the end of the world, but I think there's something about like so many horror films now. Don't get me wrong, perfectly serviceable scores, and I'm not going to go any of the musicians, and I've even brought through, and I got like Steve Dublansky score for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre and things like that. But something I feel like again, Grindhouse did it really well. Excuse me, for the most part, and this film does it. And John Carpenter's new album does it, and there's a few films where, even though I love new music and everything like that, but there's something about older, and not older like I say, even like say before I was born, but weird music and weird sound that again just elevates a film to like something like again some of the weird sound effects in this, or the Night of the Living Dead. I can remember seeing one of the making ofs for Night of the Living Dead. Actually, this just reminded me, horror fans out there. I heard somebody say recently there's a Super 8 version of Night of the Living Dead on YouTube, and there's different dialogue in there. I'll have to try and check that out. Anybody out there, if anybody knows about that, let me know. It'd be cool. But yeah, like older sci-fi sounds, like old 50s sci-fi movies, or that's a good parenting. Worst babysitter ever. No, but yeah, the original Night of the Living Dead. I remember they used like catalog, like Ford Escort. That's what's really funny as well. As soon as I saw that Ford Escort, and I'm such a moron though that like say there was scenes in this that I could barely remember from watching it like the other day, and I thought it was really funny though because one of the first like anytime I see a Ford Escort in an American movie, again it's like it's got this like mental checklist, literally in more ways than one. If like if I see things in movies, I'm always like, oh cool, like it's like say someone using a payphone, and it's like the three films I've seen a Ford Escort in America, I'm like, oh, Ford Escort, yeah, but again I'll get to the point eventually. But one thing I thought was really Night of the Living Dead, when they talked about using library music, catalog music. And I remember even them saying when they sent the records back, or they tried to get permission to use these, or saying they were using these music, they were like, they had a reply back saying, "Where have you got these records from? They're so old. Even by 1968 they were old." And I think there's this indefinable thing about like sort of music and especially horror and sci-fi and fantasy movies. That you listen to, like say the music for Hawk the Slayer, or you listen to say the music in this, or like just some Day of the Dead or something like that, and a lot of people who can barely think for themselves always use the word cheesy. They always go, "Oh, that music cheesy," or "Oh, it's stupid," but I don't think they realise that just how much soul and passion, like using the old score is given this movie, and I think you could replicate it now, because I think, like I say, you need something like say Batman vs Superman, and like say Junkie XL and Hans Zimmer doing the score, and this really good mix of like electronic music and classical music and traditional instruments, and I think that's one great thing about movies. you know, there's always been terrible movies, there's always been good movies, but I think when you get a good movie, or a movie like this, that's, I think even James King said in his review, it's a solid movie, and that, I think you can ask for, a film like this where I'm a genre fan, but these films, they are what they are, and I think everybody involved in this would say, yeah, it is what it is. It's some kind of weird sequel remake thing, but if you can elevate that film just by, say, it looks beautiful, using all these great character actors in there and stuff like that, and then just using that weird, great sound design, soundscape there, I think it's one of these things where I do genuinely think that it's like, say, a lot of people just don't give it the credit that it deserves. And again, it's one of these things where, yeah, sure, it's going to win an Oscar, but I mean, that meant, I remember when I just started college, and I remember I went up to my lecturer and said, what kind of films are you into? And I said, oh, horror. And it was really funny, because there was like a load of us that were into horror, and I think she was really surprised, like, why don't people into horror? But I think it's really interesting about horror films, like horror sci-fi. Oh, my cat's Minnie. Hello, Minnie. But yeah, I think there's something about horror sci-fi though. I don't know if it's just because the special effects involved, or because they do use creative techniques sometimes. That it kind of forces you to sort of figure out how these films are made. That I think I think a lot of horror fans, and again, you can't generalize, say all, because if once you generalize, you're wrong. But I think it is amazing the amount of horror and sci-fi fans, though. They've got a real appreciation for the inner workings of a film, and how they put together, and watch making ofs and buy magazines. And again, I think it's just that outsider mentality, or geeks and nerds naturally gravitate towards horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and also looking at it scientifically. Again, I quote scientifically, psychologically, that I think these two things go hand in hand. I remember, like, Robert Englund said about Nightmare on Elm Street, said, like, when the original came out, the first people that were sort of interested in the film were like heavy metal fans, and punk kids and stuff like that. Yeah, I think punk music, not like the Death Wish 3 kind, but maybe a little bit. But yeah, that, like, I think you almost sort of like, I think they're almost built in, like, to one another. That sci-fi films attract nerds, and nerds want to watch sci-fi films. So it's kind of, I guess, it should be no great shock really that a lot of nerds are interested in how these films are made. But yeah, I think, like I say, I think you'll definitely get more horror film fans, that'll buy soundtracks, or and just sort of they'll go, oh, I like this editing, or I like that sound design, and something, like I say, the two seem to go together. It's another good shot. That's another weird thing to talking about, like, how everything's a combination, but like, when you see animals have been killed hunting, and they put the head on the wall, like some of them in Night of the Living Dead, I think, and some old, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacres and things like that. And that's such a weird visual. What's funny though, because, like I say, I haven't studied. That's a great shot. I haven't studied this film enough. Like, it's not, I'll have to watch it like another 10 times. Got a bit of fluff just blowing in front of me, but this is one of the films where, like I say, talk about, like, certain things that elevate a film, but another thing, if there's a bottle of J&B in it as well, it's almost like, again, it's like, I'll have to do the actual movie checklist of, you know, you can get a great movie, and then, like, again, I'm being facetious, and well, sorry for some, if you're watching this with the picture, you'll know exactly why I've just said that. It's very rude. But yes, I think, like, it's one of these things where what was I saying? Oh yeah, but yeah, obviously I'm being slightly facetious, and obviously, like, a film like a Citizen Kane or something, it probably have none of these things that I've said about, like, payphones and bottles of J&B and stuff. But I do normally find that it might be on the 20th viewing of a film that I really like say a film like a Daredevil, Tango and Cash or something. Those films that you watch over and over and over and over and over again, and then it's not till you've, like, say, you're watching it for the 100th time on like ITV4, and you're like, it's like, oh wow that, oh wow that, and it's like, there is a bottle of Jami in it, and there's a payphone in it. It's like, yeah, of course, Shot in the eye. That's always like, again, talking about like say certain cliches, or again, when you're dealing with a film that's sort of quirky or interesting, that like, I think eyes, I don't know if I'm just, again, it's something I look out for on a personal level, because I've always found eye stuff really horrible, and like things like contact lenses and but yeah, like when somebody gets like shot in the eye or a spike through the eye, it's almost, again, like diodes on with flesh eaters. There's it almost, again, sort of, it's that like, it's like, oh, it's that kind of, and again, simple element, which is that's some great shots of that. It'd be really interesting though as well, like say 5, 10 years from now, like say when, like say, I think, for whatever reason this film's been on the shelf kind of thing, but I think it'd be really interesting when this film, because it does seem like now it's starting to get released and it's out there kind of thing. It'd be really interesting to see if this film has got any kind of how people think of it in a few years' time, because like I say, it's even now it's only a few months old even in America. Even that's almost like, sort of when Drew Barrymore was killed. Spoilers. Even that's just something to when people say spoiler now and then say spoiler straight after. But that's almost like the scene from Scream at the start of Scream when Drew Barrymore gets killed and she's like hanging up there like that. I mean, that's like a mental image there. It's kind of grind, see. But that's one thing I do think is funny though as well. And I do, but again, I like it kind of for all the wrong reasons, kind of thing. But I do kind of like though that like we've literally got to a point though now where, 99% of stuff's digital and everything's perfect and everything. And now to sort of give like things character and soul, they put like little speckles on there, or like crackles on the soundtrack, and I like again, it's a geeky thing, and again, if I'm looking out for that stuff, sometimes you could say that I guess I'm not fully engrossed in the film if I'm sort of trying to figure out, oh, how's that sound been done, or how's that picture element been done. But yeah, I do always think it's something that kind of most people probably don't notice it, but I do kind of love that playfulness of like you eating like a lot of like dance and rap music, how they'll use like old crackly samples, and or like say you're seeing tons of stuff now, and especially a year or two after Grindhouse, it was really funny, and it always used to catch me out because Grindhouse was supposed to be this film that like didn't do, or flopped, or didn't do as well as it was supposed to have done. And the amount of people that ripped off Rhinos, it was so funny. There was like and it was a House of the Dead game for like a Nintendo or PlayStation, I can't remember which now, but then it was all dead grindhousey and all crackly and everything, and Coke Zero did an advert, but it was all over the place, and it's really funny though, like this, I think they call it distressing, but like how you can get T-shirts with like an old film poster on, and they could print it, pretty much near perfect, but they don't. They make it look as if it's all worn, and then you'll get like album covers that are brand new, and they make it look like there's folds in it and all stuff like that. But that was another thing though. Again, talking about it from like a geeky level and things like that. That's one thing I loved about Grindhouse. They've got this big thick boot. They're like they're making a Grindhouse, and it shows you how they made all the posters and everything, and how they made all the standees and everything. They're all these like really cool, like these sort of they made them like the exact same dimensions of like how lobby cards would get released and things like that. And I do think it's such a shame in a way that like I'm never 100% sure if they make lobby cards or not anymore, because I feel like, oh no, they don't make lobby cards anymore. And then you see like a really cool cinema in like LA or something and got like lobby cards in the window or something, or since you go on eBay you type in lobby cards, and like there'd be like lobby cards from a film that's like brand new, or a film that's like 2 or 3 years old. It's like, oh, I don't think they make lobby cards anymore. But yeah, I think it's a shame in a way that like like you say, I know this film has been released on a physical format, but as much as I can see why things like Netflix and YouTube and on demand and stuff is popular, it will be a real crying shame if like say 10 years from now you literally just can't excuse me, get the soundtrack to this, or get this on a format that you can actually hold in your hand. It will be a shame. I guess the collectibles though for it, like now if like you see a poster for this or what's funny I did see on the that's one thing actually just to check that I wasn't going insane then it's actually been released. I went to the BBFC website and I typed in the film and it said it'd been rated and the release date for it and everything. But that's one thing again though I love about loads of these different websites like the Internet Movie Poster Awards or, because there is so many things you can check for on the internet. And even though I'm a sucker for like, just picking up a film magazine or, just like, I like actually walking into the cinema just see if I can actually see some trace of it. It is great though now you can like literally you can do it from not leaving your armchair or sitting on the toilet or something that like you can be like I'm on the BBC website I'm checking if this film's great. Oh yeah, there's a cool poster for it. And anyway, the long-winded point was going to say if things are getting less and less released physically, the few things that are out there, like posters and things like that, will become so collectible. Like I saw the quad poster for this on the BBFC website. It was really small, we couldn't click on it, but they did that great thing where like the British posters go horizontally instead of vertically, but they do the great thing where occasionally you'll see like a really cool. Like there's loads of great quad posters, like like Ang Lee's Hulk poster. I think the quad version is way better than the American version. But like occasionally you'll get the quad one, but because it is going the other way, and sometimes you'll get like just the original poster, and so it fills up like it's almost like 4:3 versus widescreen, but because the quad posters go the other way, they've got two spaces on the side to fill up, and so they literally just put like quotes or some random text on there, and it kind of, even though it was a thumbnail, I don't think you could click on it. I was like, I want that poster, I want that poster, and this will be one of those films though now where again, like now, cause I have enjoyed this film, and like I say, I can't wait for get on, DVD and Blu-ray and stuff. That like this will be one of these films that now, if I ever see anything about this film, like anywhere, I'll be like, oh, I'll be dead tempted to go to stuff, and what is really funny though as well because like just looking at these sort of when I started doing this film, is that Ford Escort in? Oh no. Uh, yeah, but this film's only 85 minutes long, and it's like that's one thing again I love about pure exploitation movies that like oh so great, that kind of I always remember like again I always go back to Romero, but when let's say talk about like News of the Night of the Living Dead, but when on Document of the Dead, that's the making of Dawn of the Dead. I remember him saying that when he goes to meetings with distributors to be like, oh, we love this film, it's brilliant, but cut it to 90 minutes. And once you kind of know that's how exploitation films work, that more often than not they're around 90 minutes, but this film's 85 minutes long, and that's with credits. So it's kind of like uh, McCready, been in the thing room. What's funny, I'll say while I'm thinking about it, because it just said McCready, but like to a bit like geeks, geeks elevate to geeky things, but I know I said it when we did the commentary for the 1982 thing a few years ago. But the dog at the start of that is named Jed, and I was watching on TV last night. They had White Fang on the 90s, White Fang. With Ethan Hawke and it was in a remake of John Cobb's film. Oh, that's so weird. Anyway, because but yeah, so it's like, and I was like, oh, there's Jed from the thing, and I was like, Jesus God, I'm such a geek, I can recognise that dog and other things like it. But that's another thing as well, to this like little checklist of things, but that they're out a Christmas movie, and then it's like a Christmas horror movie, and again, it's become a quote unquote fashionable thing to do nowadays. And even though I'm not like the biggest fan of Christmas, that like that like I still got a soft spot for watching Scrooged or a bit post for Repulsion, but yeah, I'm not like say like a huge fan of Christmas, but I still like watching Scrooged or the Master Universe Christmas special and things like that. But like yeah, on this like checklist, I think like sometimes if it's a Christmas film, and especially if it's like a horror film or an action film, again it's become like a fashionable thing to say nowadays that like oh, what's your favourite Christmas film? And it's, oh, Die Hard, or First Blood, or something. But again, this is one of those films where I think like Electra's a Christmas movie as well. But it's always kind of, again, it's that extra little indefinable thing where I know sometimes, like, a lot of people who know me kind of sometimes like will go, oh, I like films for all these weird reasons, like, oh, it's got a great song on, or it's got like a great montage in one part, or I saw it when I was a kid, or I love the poster, or something like that. And again, it is, again, I know in my heart of hearts that's not what I always judge a film on. That's like, oh, just because I saw the poster once, it's always like my favourite film ever. But I do think that if it's a film I like, if it's got all these other things on there, I do think, like, 'cause like there when I saw that Christmas tree, and just it's like, oh, it's a Christmas film. So for years and years now, it can just pop up on these cool lists. The lighting makes me look like being kidnapped by aliens. Sounds just filth. It is always fascinating though, and I know I sort of referenced it earlier on, but like I say, again, grew up watching these films and everything, but and I think it's always ridiculous when the BBFC bans something like Human Centipede 2 or something, because you're just like, well, it's such a ridiculous thing. It's just so stupid that why ban a film like that. I think now I think it's come out as far as I know. But films of that ilk, I mean, you're banning 99% of things, it's pointless. But I am always amazed at something like if somebody said to me now, you're working with the BBFC for the day and you've got to rate this film, I would say this is an 18. I don't know whether this film can have sex in it, gore, violence, people smoking and all this kind of stuff, which is really frowned upon nowadays. Things, the smoking, not all that other stuff. But yeah, joking aside, that if I was rating this film, if somebody said to me, what would you say the BBFC have given this film? And again, I don't think just because I said growing up in the 70s, 80s and things like that, you just assume that every horror film is an 18, or every half decent horror film is, in your mind you perceive it to be an 18. That, like, I would have thought, yeah, this is definitely an 18. And it's like, how can a film be, have this much going in it, this much, stuff in it, that, like, it's 15? It's so weird. So weird. Yeah, that's pretty weird thing that scene. What is really funny though as well, because like I say, this is like set in Texarkana, but like I said on loads of stuff, like, big fan of like American things, and it's really funny though. I probably know more American towns and cities than I probably do in the UK. Like, like so many things over the years, like like the Glenn Campbell song, like is me say the Glenn Campbell song Galveston, and like fans like Detroit Lions, and then known like people like James Rolfe, like from, or like Rocky was filmed in Pittsburgh and things like that. And it's really funny that, like, somebody could literally say to me, sorry, it's not the man. Somebody could literally say to me, like, oh, do you know something that? Oh, I love that shot there of that, again, the stupidest things that caught me out when I was watching it the other day, but like there, that lighting coming from there, and I love the fact though that, like, sort of, she switches that light off, and because it was so bright, that scene was so well lit there. Was that really just genuinely the lights, like that were under there, was this huge, massive, like, movie light type lighting in there. I do think it's kind of good though, in a bit, that, like, when she goes to this, like, sort of like petrol station, for get some coffee and stuff. And I did like that scene there, because I think it's really interesting how horror films sometimes really catch you off guard. That, like, you think, oh, okay, I've seen this film. seen this scene a million times. Like when I was watching Blood Diner last night, there was one part where there was this couple having sex on the beach, and the woman's like, naked and things, and then the killer comes out. You think, oh, this woman's dead, and then this woman just starts doing martial arts on this guy, and like, she ends up dying, but not from the killer. This rock falls on her. But it really sort of caught me off guard. I was just like, it didn't like shock me. I wasn't like, oh my god, but it was like, I was like, oh, I was not expecting that. And again, I know it's a cliche for when people are like, oh, when people do silly things in horror movies, and he's like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? But again, this little sequence here, I thought was really good, and it almost timeless, because I never would have thought this was a film that came out like, you know, I know it's a couple of years old now, but I never thought this was a film that was basically new. If I just switched over now, and it's got a timeless quality to it, like, But again, it's that thing where, you sort of, when she walks in here now, and you think, oh, okay, she might get killed, but I wasn't expecting like the old guy be dead, and the old woman be, and again, like there, and we're surprised, again, I should have done proper research, but the fact though that like I was surprised if at least 2 or 3 people from this film are from the original. Seems silly not to, doesn't it? But that looks like, just a normal fridge. To me that's cool. I'm sure people from this area are like, yeah, thanks for putting the live bait next to the coffee machine. And instead, just seeing that machine that says cigarettes on it there, even as like a non-smoker, I do feel so unpatronised when I see stuff like that. And even that, again, I'll have to sort of, again, should have done this beforehand really, but like, if the town really do show this film, I think there's something kind of, like, even as like a horror fan, you think, well, that's a bit strange, but there's something kind of cool about that, like, sort of embracing it, because if that's what your town's remembered for anyway, or if that's the only thing people remember, you may as well almost sometimes, well, why not, Again, as well, seeing those petrol pumps with the clockwork dials, that is always something though as well that sort of, again, I'll definitely I'll have to try and remember to do this list. And send myself a text to remind me on. uh, yeah, but like there, it's again, it's not the end of the world, but it is one of these things where, sort of, I feel like an enormous sense of well-being if I see an old-fashioned petrol pump. Text has been sent. Who says I'm not modern? I'll text him. I love simple things like that shot there though as well. That like how you saw him in the shadows and he stepped backwards. Maniac. That's another good new horror film that's got a great soundtrack. But again, I think, but I love that shot there because by rights, I should hate that shot because it looks really fake. But I kind of love that though. Sometimes when you'll get a shot that's been color corrected to hell and back, or it's just literally as a composite CGI shot or something. And by rights, have I ever noticed it? I must say I hate it because it's just one of those things. But like, I love that shot there because it almost looks like a dream. It looked weird. And again, though, one thing about this film, and this is something as well, people always, I don't say always, but I always feel like that this film does something that I love it in movies, and it seems like loads of people hate it, but I love it as when it looks like there's gonna be a sequel or there's gonna be another one, and like so at the end of this, you see like the shadow of the Phantom Killer, and like in the original, you see it's if he's waiting in a queue for going to the cinema to see the original, and like in the 1998 Godzilla has Godzilla popping out to that egg and stuff, or it's Nightmare on Elm Street films, you'll see Freddy's reflection in the water, or you'll hear Jason sound effects. I love that stuff, and this film does it, and that's the other thing as well. How this killer's called the Phantom, and again when I was talking about like how films when they loaded with this like sort of reference and and all this kind of stuff there. Like something like there's some like killers called the Phantom, and then you think about like I think there's a character in Flash Gordon called the Phantom, and then you got like obviously the Phantom Menace, and then the comic book character the Phantom, and then I like how there's just this big whirlpool of like, and that was nothing though as well. That are these the only two slasher movies like the original and this one that end with a train, and even more amazing in the original, and I could be way off base on this. I'm pretty sure the original That Town Dreaded Sundown is the only slasher movie to feature a working steam train, and it's like it just really, even though I'd seen it like because I watched it again recently, in preparing this commentary, air quotes. I wonder if that's that. Then yeah, I'll say yeah. So the original had a steam train in it, and that was like, oh my god. But that's in there because in the remake of Friday the 13th, Jason uses a crossbow, and I wonder if that was again a little bit of one-upmanship in a friendly way. I don't, probably completely talking at me arse, but like how in Friday the 13th Part 2, he has the rags in the bag on his head, the burlap sack, I believe it's called, to wax lyrical. But yeah, Jason is basically a composite of the Tenant Dreaded Sundown character, and I wonder if that was a little almost, oh, you've had something off us, we'll have something off you, kind of thing. Probably not, probably completely, my own sort of viewpoint like that. I can't, but again, I kind of love that because as far as I'm concerned, if like Jason went back to the burlap sack and copied something like he used a handgun or something, I think that'd be pretty funny. But like there, I mean, and again, I know I've said this on loads and loads of movies. And I know sometimes they probably make it deliberately so you never figure it out. But anytime I watch a film like this, you go on the internet, I was like, yeah, I figured who the killer was. I figured out who the killer was in the first 10 minutes. And literally, though, I know I've only seen this film a couple of times so far, but like, I'm like, what? Like, yeah, he's that guy from the start, but who's the guy with the mustache and what's going on? And like, I always remember, though, that was the sort of talk about how sometimes films like this can almost sort of be their own worst enemy kind of thing. But I am constantly amazed though that like say the Scream movies though, when it was like it was one kill, then it was like two kills, then it was like a guy with like you know Sydney's long lost twin brothers, uncles, nephews, cousin. You're like, oh yeah, really? And it's like I kind of love about stuff like this in a way that I kind of love the I hate it when, like I said before, people watch things ironically because you just those dicks. But like sometimes though, there's you can't help but just think, oh, excuse me, you can't help but think, really, oh, we wanted to make the town remember, and we got this guy and this other guy and the thing and the one. It's like, brilliant again in a lot of ways that I won't have it any other way because, like you say, it's like that's what I love about these kind of films in a way that But I do think it's funny as well talking about stuff like this. This is a point I wanted to make. I should have saved it for the if I do a commentary for the new Daredevil. But that's one thing I do think is funny though, in a way that like don't get me wrong, watch the first 4 or 5 episodes of the Netflix Daredevil. And I'll be the first to admit that, like, I'm not sort of a huge TV fan. Like, the TV shows I really love, I can count on, 2 hands, basically. I mean, the ones I'm truly passionate about and seen, like, every episode and things like that. But I've watched, like, the first few episodes of the new Daredevil Netflix, and I do think it's really interesting, though, that there's this new thing that's come out, and a lot of people who like Netflix or HBO seem to do, where they can binge watch stuff and just watch episode after episode after episode, and shows like The Big Bang Theory are really terrible for it. Like that, there's like 180 episodes of Big Bang Theory, whatever that is, and I think I checked the other day, and something like even like something really terrible like Geordie Shore. I think I checked last night. There's like 70 episodes of that. But then a film like a film like this, there's basically 2 films. So it's like 3 hours worth of material that you can literally deconstruct for years and years to come. And it's really weird because I'm really in 2 minds about it. Like if somebody said to me, like with this, again, Scream TV example, perfect example. But it just said they were going to say they were going to do a TV series of this, but it'd be good to talk about the Scream TV series because that actually exists. But they're going to do a TV series of Scream. I'm sure I'll watch the first 1 or 2. I'm sure it'll be quite, probably enjoyable. I'll probably, get some kick out of that kind of thing. But if somebody said to me, there's going to be 50 episodes of that Scream TV series, do you want to watch it? To be like, well, probably not now. And it's like, I was watching that Daredevil. I was really enjoying it. I know you stopped watching because I passed out because I'd been drinking. My PlayStation shut down because I'd been asleep. But yeah, so it's a really interesting thing that, like, I feel like even say films like this, and again I'm doing that in air quotes, that I love stuff like this, but there's a kind of a point. It's got a beginning, a middle, and end. Not the right order. No, it's got a beginning, middle, and end. That's a good shot. It's got like something it needs to tell, or something it wants to tell, and it's I just like the town around here. Everything's closed. No, but no, but which is not even true. Anyway, but yeah. So it's like one of these things where like these two films, like 30, 40 years old, but you can keep deconstructing them, you can remake them. It's referenced, it's self-referential. It's in its own world. It's this kind of thing. But like with me, it's this kind of weird thing where, like with a lot of TV shows, and a lot of people seem to really love it, and I don't know why. I can't get into this thing of, in the sense that oh, here we go. Be interested in these other films that Book of Copper. I'm not sure if I've seen that. Oh, look at that! They're watching the movies. The movies, man. I believe I'm from Road Song like that. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, long-winded point I'm trying to make is, if like, if you literally only are writing the stories, literally just so you've got 10, 13, 14, 15 episodes of a TV show, is that I think it's tricky where, if you write a film, and even if it's the dumbest film ever, like, like a slash movie or Chopping Mall or whatever, at least it's its own thing. But if somebody said to me now, even if I had 10 years to do it, write 13 films based around this, it's like, would you really need that? Would anybody want it? Would it, would I like to see 20 Death Wish films? Yeah, I would. But no, you know what I mean? That, like, this is, there's the killer. There's gonna be another one 35 years from now. But yeah, so it's an interesting thing that, like, it's an interesting shift in, like I say, and again, they're based on the 1976. But that's it. It's interesting about, say, things like that, though. How this film is, say, 2014 on IMDb, didn't get released until this year, but apparently it's been on the shelf for a couple of years. But it's like that, the original version, you see that a lot of places references 77, but then it's, some places 76, so it's interesting, sort of just juxtaposition. I don't know if that's the right word. Nancy Nay, I don't know what that name's. Addison. I'm not saying the name Addison randomly. There was I know somebody who had a Cabbage Patch doll recently that was named Addison, my little niece. So that's why that name caught my eye. God, I do live in the 80s, don't I? Ed Lauter's dead. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? Yeah, but so it's an interesting thing that, say, with um, yeah, with like Netflix and things, that, like, like, cause I'm pretty sure, like, sometimes, like, even in this digital age, and where you can just watch stuff, on Netflix, and at the drop of a hat kind of thing, that, like, sometimes have to try get somebody to watch a film, or even say something like Batman vs Superman. I know quite a few people are like, like, just like literally aren't that bothered about it. But then, like, you can literally get somebody what's like, you know 10, 11 hours of Daredevil or something, and it's like, oh, weirdly, I was going to say that the main woman looked like Danielle Harris, and Danielle Harris was in there. No, that's weird to a bit, like, how, God, what goes around comes around, eh? What if it's the same one? Oh yeah, what's interesting as well, because, like, normally, I have like a random crew member, and Uh, I haven't picked one in this, but I guess that Daniel House could be the random crew member. But I was watching, like, say, a couple of days ago, I was watching the new Jennifer Lopez film, The Boy Next Door, as you do, and it's like, so it's made by the same production company. And one thing that I always used to do in, like, the DVD commentaries days or Video Warriors days, we pick like a random crew member. Well, if we hadn't picked a random crew member, we'd pick catering. And I don't know why. Again, it's become one of these things that, like, when I'm watching the credits, I always just look out for it, like, kind of thing. But it's really interesting that the catering in this and the catering in Boy Next Door was done by there. Oh god, perfectly timed. Alex in the kitchen, and I was like, oh, that's weird. It's like, that's watching two films, like, within relative, short time ago. They're the same catering. That we talk about names, like Weesmuller. I always think it's funny because that's my dad's favourite Tarzan was Johnny Weesmuller. So if any, that name just instantly just popped out there. It's like, oh, Johnny Weesmuller. But what's funny though, God, I mean, geez, talking about repeating myself, and what goes around comes around. But I am really amazed at the amount of people that don't watch credits though, and I know in the big scheme of things it's just a list of names going up the screen, but I just feel like it just feels so right to me that when a film ends, the credits come on and you watch them, and it literally is one of those things though where. And again, I'm saying, that I don't fit in even in groups that where, well, I don't mean slight facetious, but you think, oh, when you hang around film fans, you're going to be exactly the same, you're going to be into the exact same stuff, and I'm literally I literally can't think of another person that, obviously they might leave the credits on while they just go for a piss or something, which, by the way, I want my mum. But yeah, they might leave the credits on while they're just grabbing a beer or something, but I would literally just leave, I very rarely switch the credits off. In fact, I very rarely can think of a time when I would have switched the credits off. So it's just, yeah, I mean, God, yes, G, Mary, Gentleman, Christmas Island, filmed location in Shreveport, Louisiana, Texarkana, Arkansas, and Texarkana, Texas, which is good to know. What's interesting about credits though as well, I saw something. I was watching a documentary about cannabis. As you do the other day, and it was a Kickstarter thing, and it had a list of all the people in the credits who put some money towards it, and it was one of the biggest list of names I've ever seen in credits. Orion Pictures. Orion Pictures are back. Who'd have thunk it? I think Orion are doing the. I think been resurrected by MGM, and I think they're doing the Poltergeist remake, which could be again along these similar lines, maybe. It'd be great if that's a sequel, if that's like Poltergeist 4, that'll really piss people off. And there you go. Time that dreaded sundown. See you, everybody.